Boom. I don't know why I said that. Hello, everybody. Welcome back. Finally, I'm making another video. I know. Didn't you miss me? I know you guys missed me so much, man. All, 72 of my subscribers, that failed. I meant to say, I was looking back. All three of y'all, but I was like, wait, I have 72 subs. But I know, three of them probably watch my videos, if that. All right, so let's see if I can remember my intro. Welcome to Rethinking Reality. This is the podcast where I talk about the universe and things that might make you scratch your head. Today, we are talking about the book called Crime and Punishment by Fyodor Dostoevsky. Now, before I continue, let me grab the book so I can show it to you. I forgot to do that. Shebang. Right, so here's the book. Right, there's the back of the book. I'm basically just going to be doing, I guess, a book review. That's basically what this is going to be. I finished this book today, probably 2 or 3 hours ago. I guess it was about 3 hours ago. Although I finished the novel part of the book at 12 p.m. today. It's currently 3:48, but then I didn't read every single page of this book, but I read the introduction because it said to read the introduction after reading the book. I read the introduction afterwards and the appendix, and there's so many different parts besides just the novel. What else did I read? I think I also read the epilogue. Yeah, I read the epilogue. That was the last thing I read. And I think that's it. I looked through some of the notes, but I didn't read the bibliography, and I didn't read all the notes. I think that's what I didn't read. Because, I don't know, it just didn't seem like there was any point to it. Anyway, so let's talk about this book. Let me open my notes here, or my points, things I'm going to talk about in this episode, and we'll get started. So, let me catch my breath. Right. I guess first, before I talk about the book itself, I'll talk about why I decided to read this book. The main reason was just because I've decided that I want to start reading, I want to make it a part of my life. And I want to start reading at least a little every day if I can. Maybe not every single day for the rest of my life, but generally I want to read 7 days a week, even if it's just a couple pages one day. So I had heard Jordan Peterson talk about Fyodor Dostoevsky, and he said that he recommends all five of his biggest novels. And I also heard my English teacher, because I'm in college right now, my English teacher, who's probably my favorite teacher actually, he said that his favorite author was Dostoevsky. So I was like, all right, let me check out this man's books. I mean, obviously he must be at least a pretty good author if people are talking about him so much. So many people are talking about him. So yeah, I did some, research to try to figure out which of his books I should start with. I also asked my English teacher, and I settled on Crime and Punishment because that's what he recommended. He recommended starting with that or The Idiot. And so I decided on Crime and Punishment. And so that's basically why I decided to read this book. Now let's get into my likes and dislikes of this book. So let's see. Let's start with dislikes first. So I'll say one thing. The first thing I have to say is let's talk about the translation. So the translation is by, you can actually see on the back of the book. The copy I have is translated by Constance Garnett. Now, I bought this book in in a set of 6 on Amazon for about $35, I think. So pretty cheap. I mean, that's what, $7 a book, if my math is correct, which it is. It wasn't exactly $35, but you know what I'm saying. So that's pretty cheap, right? Especially if, Dostoevsky really is one of the literary geniuses, I guess, to ever exist. Um, so let's okay. Translations, right? That's one thing I disliked was the fact that now it's not a huge deal, but these are just my dislikes. There were definitely some grammatical errors as well as spelling errors throughout the book. For example, like I remember one word was Serous, and I'm pretty sure it's supposed to be serious. Like I'm almost positive because it was like I'm being service, and I was like, what? That should be serious, okay? And then there were other random mistakes. Like sometimes I would feel like I think there's supposed to be a comma there. I remember noticing that. And yeah, there's some other words like I think fulfill was only spelled with one L, and I don't think that's now the book is written in British English, so I'm looking up fulfill. Okay, never mind. Fulfill with one L are both correct spellings. Okay, so it's probably the fact that it's British English. So that's probably part of the reason why it was a bit difficult for me to read was because it was written in British English, and they say stuff like, well, flat, right? That's for an apartment, if I understand. There's words like kopecks and what's the other one? Rubles. I believe kopecks are the smallest unit of money in Britain. I'm not sure though. But anyway, so that made it kind of difficult to read. But overall, though, I would say it wasn't super difficult to read. Like it wasn't unreadable or anything. But it did bother me that like there would be all these errors, and I'd be like, that's I don't know, it bothered me because it bothers me when it's just like if you just proofread this, you would have seen, oh, we need to add an I for that word. That should be serious. But anyway, so I suppose maybe Constance Garnett's translation isn't the best, and I kind of went down a rabbit hole as I was trying to figure out which translation to get. Actually, not which translation to get, but which one is best. I started researching it after I bought the books, actually. I was like, because I think I just assumed at first that, like, there was one translator for all his books, but no, it's not true at all. And I heard a lot of people saying Garnett's translations were terrible, horrible, just stay away from them. Heard a lot of other people saying, no, they're good. There's one person had a post on Reddit, and he was saying that she was actually one of the better translators for Dostoevsky. But from what I could tell, most people were saying that her translations are fine. Like, it seems to be that, yeah, it depends who you are, whether or not you like her translations or not, but her translations seem to be fine. Like, they're good enough, at least, right, for you to be able to fully experience the novel and understand the lessons that Dostoevsky was trying to convey and what he was trying to get across. So anyway, one of my other dislikes, other than the errors, grammatical and spelling errors, was that the ending. And by the way, I guess this is obvious, but I'm still going to say it anyway. Spoilers, right? There will be spoilers in here. So the ending was a bit abrupt. And I was a bit disappointed. But now that I think about it, I mean, it made sense that it ended where it did, which it literally just ended with Raskolnikov confessing to, what's his name? The chief of police. Starts with an L. What is his name? And he confessed that he committed the crime. And then the book just ended. Oh yeah, Ilya Petrovich. I don't know why I said his name started with an L. Anyway, because I'm thinking of Levidrailgov or whatever his name is. I got that wrong. Levidrailov. No, I can't say it. Anyway, it's Russian names. So anyway, the ending was a bit abrupt, but yeah, I mean, if you read the epilogue, then I guess the story kind of continues in a way when you read the epilogue, which I did end up reading. But anyway, and another thing, I guess that another dislike is the names. That was one thing that was it made it hard to keep track of who was who, because like they would refer to the same person by two different names. So you would have like Sonia, who was, let's see, I still forget. Like I couldn't tell you all the names, who all the people were. Sonya was, I believe, Marmeladov's daughter. Yeah, Dunya was Raskolnikov's sister. So anyway, but they'd have like Sonya, and then in the next line, someone would refer to her as Sofia. What's the last name? Whatever her last name was. I'm getting mixed up now. But anyway, and so but it's the same character, it's the same girl. So that was kind of confusing sometimes. What else? Like what's his name? Luzhin and Pyotr Petrovich, if I'm saying that right. So yeah, stuff like that would make it difficult. And of course, the main character Raskolnikov, he would be referred to as Rodion Romanovich. I think that's correct. And also, let's see, his mom called him Rodya. I don't know if that's how you say it. I'm not Russian, so forgive me, all you Russian speakers. Like, I'm sure there's none watching this. Who knows? But yeah, so that made it hard to keep track of who was who. But really, that's really quite a minor thing. I mean, if I had probably just been paying more attention when I read, I probably would have kept track of them better. And I did find myself turning to the, whatever you call it, the beginning of the book to, what the heck? How did I skip it? There it is. To the names of the principal characters section. Yeah, I had to turn here quite often, but those are really my only gripes, I would say, at least the ones I can think of right now. Yeah, those really were my main gripes. Other than that, I enjoyed this book. Like overall, I enjoyed the book. It was good. I read it in about 9 days. Yeah, roughly 9 days. I started it on November 1st, and it's currently November 9th. So, yeah, 9 days. And now, switching topics. No, not whatever. Not switching topics. Let's talk about my likes. What I enjoyed about this book. I enjoyed the characters, particularly Raskolnikov and Marmeladov. Now, Raskolnikov is the main character, so I guess it makes sense that most people who read it are going to like him because he's the one talked about the most. And it's the not proximity bias, but the same type of thing, familiarity bias. That's not the technical name for it, but anyway, so yeah, I'll say I found Raskolnikov relatable, and certainly almost dare I say, I felt compassion for him at some points, maybe, but like I could identify with him, and so that made him a likable character. Although, of course, he commits this heinous crime, perhaps the most heinous crime of all. So, but of course, the book is really about walking you through what was going on in his mind and why he committed the crime, how he committed the crime, how he was able to bring himself to do it, and also the psychological consequence that occurred because he committed the crime. And so, yeah, I liked Raskolnikov overall. I think he was definitely an interesting character for sure. And I do feel like maybe sometimes he was callous, but yeah, I mean, that's just because of who he is. I mean, there's this, I guess, is it dichotomy? Is that the word? There's this, I suppose, juxtaposition of this idea that his intellect and his spirit, I guess, are constantly they're fighting with each other essentially. And so that's kind of going on throughout the whole book, I would say. I think it's fair to say that. And so Well, that makes him an interesting character, like I said, because you see that he's a smart guy. He's educated. He's been to university, and he is clever, for sure. But he also there's a downside to that, right? And so that means he knows how to use reason to, how would you say it? He knows how to use reason to convince himself and others that something morally wrong is actually justifiable and perhaps even good, right? Perhaps it's not wrong, even though most people think that. No, it's actually because of this and this and this reason. It's actually what should be done. So anyway, like I'm trying to think when he was talking to, or no, that was someone else. Was that his friend Razumichin? I think is how you say it. Who was it? Who was talking to a man in a tavern? I think, and he was talking about the old woman. What was the old woman's name? Whatever, the old pawnbroker woman. He was talking about how, she's basically useless, a useless person. She's super old. She probably doesn't even know why she's alive, and what was it? She deceives poor people, and she is like, she may as well not exist. And then it was what the person who he was talking to was like, but you yourself would not kill her or murder her. And he was like, well, no, I wouldn't do it, but I'm simply arguing about the justice of it. That's the right way to say it. Arguing for that argument. No, you get what I'm saying. So anyway, I hope you do anyway. So yeah, Raskolnikov knows how to do that, right? And that's essentially, I guess, what he does is, well, from what I understand, the reason why he commits the murder. Now, the second, him killing Lisaveta, I think is how you say it, was basically an accident, right? I mean, he says that later on when I think he's explaining to Sonya. He says the man who committed or who murdered Lisaveta did not mean to. He doesn't say that exactly, but yeah, that's basically what he says. And I gotta check. Okay. I don't want this episode to be longer than 30 minutes, or not much longer if it is. So, but the reason Raskolnikov murdered the pawnbroker woman was, from what I could tell, because he wanted to essentially see if he was, as he said, I think, a louse or a real man. If I'm correct, a louse is essentially like I think it's just like an ordinary person. Either that or it's just like a useless person. Like something worthless. Yeah, okay. Either of two small wingless parasitic insects that live on the skin of mammals and birds. So yeah, something that's like worthless. A contemptible person, especially an unethical one. So yeah, that's why Raskolnikov committed that crime. Was because he wanted to see, I guess, if he was like Napoleon, or if he was, because that's the thing. Like he wrote this article he wrote this article discussing this idea of two types of people in the world: ordinary people and extraordinary people. And he basically made the argument that extraordinary people, geniuses, if you will, have the prerogative, I suppose, to do away with laws and to cross boundaries whenever they deem it necessary. And it's an interesting argument, right? And essentially Raskolnikov believed, or at least wanted to believe, that he was one of these extraordinary people. And anyway, so I think that's that. Let's see. Another thing I liked. So yeah, I liked the characters, and I guess I'll talk a little bit about Marmeladov, who was the man who ended up dying. Well, okay, first I think in the first section of the book, maybe the first chapter, he no, it was no, I don't think it wasn't the first chapter. I don't think it was after Raskolnikov committed the crime. He Raskolnikov went to a tavern because he just had this random desire to be around people, and this man Marmeladov was sitting near him, and eventually he spoke to Raskolnikov, and they had a long conversation. He's this big, like, I think he's this pretty fat guy, loud, and I think he was bald. I'm trying to remember, but yeah, and I think he's like in his 40s or 50s, but or at least that's how I imagined him. But anyway, I just thought he was a cool character because he starts talking to Raskolnikov about his life, and even though he's a drunkard, he throughout the discussion, his discussion with Raskolnikov, he makes it clear that he very much loves his family, his wife and his kids. Let's see, I think he had 2 daughters. Did he have 3? I think he had 3 kids in total. His daughter was Sonia or Sofia, I think. Hope I'm saying that right, but yeah. And so I just thought he was an interesting character. I mean, he just kept talking to, like, he talked for I don't know how long to Raskolnikov in that tavern, and people started laughing at him. People made jokes about him, and he basically told his life story to Raskolnikov, and yeah, I don't know. I just thought he was an interesting character. Of course, then later he ended up dying because he got run over by a carriage because he walked out into the street intoxicated. And yeah, good things rarely come of that, or bad things are likely to happen if you do that, at least back then, you know. So yeah, he ended up dying. But anyway, what else is there? What else did I like? I liked the length of the chapters. I mean, here's the thing. I haven't read that many books on my own, or I haven't read that many novels, or, well, books in general. I mean, I've read 8 books. Well, now 9 books. And this isn't the first novel I've read, but the first novel I've read in a long time. I guess the last one I read was Gifted Hands, which I may have read. It's been at least a few years, though, so yeah. But I thought the length of the chapters were good. Most of them were around 10 pages, I think. Or, yeah, most of them were roughly 10 pages. Some of them were like 15. I think they were all between like 7 to 15 pages, I think. The last chapter, I think, was the shortest, actually. But anyway. So, yeah, I thought the length of the chapters were good. And it's, split up into 6 parts. I don't know. I don't really have much thoughts about that. But I liked the descriptions of... Whoops, I just moved the camera. I liked the descriptions of the characters, and I guess I like Dostoevsky's writing style, although, again, it's hard to tell because of the translations. But I liked the way that Raskolnikov was described, and I don't know, just the way it's written, and also, I don't know if I mentioned, but translation I have is in British English, and yeah, I don't know. Maybe I should read more novels, but I did like the descriptions of places, and especially of people, I guess. I feel like they made the characters easy to imagine, I guess. So let's see. Next thing I liked how there were several, I think this is the right word, cliffhangers. Well, I know what a cliffhanger is, but I think yeah. There were several cliffhangers throughout the book, and I liked that because it makes it hard to stop reading. And that's the thing, is I've never liked reading, although now I would say I enjoy it. I mean, I'm really trying to start reading every day. That way it'll be uncomfortable not to read, and so I'll end up enjoying reading more. But I got about 5 minutes left. But yeah, so I liked the fact that there were some cliffhangers, not like for every chapter, But I don't know, maybe I'm just guessing. For like a third of the chapters, I felt like, oh man, like I can't just put the book down for today. Like I gotta read at least one more chapter, right, to see what happens. So I liked that. And yeah, I already said the last thing I've written here is the writing style. Yeah, I mean I already talked about that pretty much. So what else is there to say? I mean, I could get into like different scenes, I guess. Like one of my favorite scenes. Well, let me think. What was one of my favorite scenes? Well, like I said, I liked when the interaction between Marmeladov and Raskolnikov. Let's see. I liked. Man, what was one of my favorite scenes in the book, other than that one? It's a good question. I mean, the last scene was good, right? That was, when he finally confessed. That was interesting because, right, he had Raskolnikov had essentially two decisions, which was either confess or commit suicide, and that's what I forget which character. One character said that it was the guy who had been like interrogating. He was a detective, I think. He had been interrogating Raskolnikov. Is that how you would say it? I don't know. He had spoken to Raskolnikov at length twice, I think. But anyway, I guess that scene was good. Yeah, whatever that scene was when. Yeah, the scene when what's his name? Darlade. No, what's the name? Darloke. Hold on. Darkole. What was his name, dude? Oh my gosh. Anyway, the character that burst into the room when he and the detective, I think, and Raskolnikov were talking, and basically confessed. He said, "I did it. I'm the murderer." That was an interesting scene. I liked that scene. Um, yeah, because like Raskolnikov kept suspecting that, and even asked him like, why are you basically talking nonsense, or you're trying to set a trap for me. You're trying to get me to fall into a trap, and that was interesting to me, I guess, because I enjoy intellectual conversations and that type of it's almost like a boxing match of the minds, something like that, right? Where it's like you have two smart people conversing, and they're almost like trying to figure each other out, and right, or at least one of them is trying to figure out what the other one knows about him. I don't know. I'm kind of a sucker for detective shows, but anyway. So, in conclusion, what do I think about this book? I think, oh gosh, I think it was a good book. Would I recommend it? Yes, with one caveat. Maybe get a different translation than Constance Garnett's. I think her translation's good enough. Like, it's good enough. But personally, it just annoyed me, all the grammatical. It's not like the book was rife with grammatical and spelling errors, but there were enough for it to bother me. But if that's the only translation you have, or you're on a tight budget and you want to do what I did, get a pack of six of them on Amazon, the Wordsworth classics, then I think her translations are probably good enough. So anyway, I got 1 minute. Let's go quick. All right, so I would recommend it. I know I've heard you can do your own research on what translations are best. A lot of people like PNV. A lot of people like Cats with the Z. I've heard people say that's good. Anyway, let's see. If I were to rate this book, I would give it, I don't know, maybe after, as time passes, I'll be like, man, that really was a good book. But right now, I would give it I'll give it a solid 8 out of 10. Sure, we'll say that. You know what, 8.5 as far as the story. The only reason I guess it loses points is the fact that it was kind of hard to follow along with some of the characters and not so much that, but mainly the grammatical errors and spelling errors. But yeah, I would recommend it, and I'm about out of time here, so I hope you enjoyed this video. What else is there to say? Let me know if you did. And, is this novel one of the greatest books of all time? Or one of the greatest novels of all time? Or, greatest books of all time? Very well could be. To be honest, I haven't read enough books to give you that answer or to give you my opinion. But it very well could be. It's definitely a good book. I would recommend it. It's a bit long. I mean, it's not that long. It's like 447 pages. The novel itself, not including the introduction or the epilogue. But anyway, I think it's a good book. And so, that's about it. I'll see you in the next video. And next video is going to be on, I don't know why I'm pointing. You can't even see it. But it's going to be on the book, The Anatomy of Story, which I've read 2 chapters. And then I stopped reading and I picked up this book when it came in the mail. So I'm going to resume that book today, probably later today, and I'll probably finish it within the next 3 to 7 days. So that'll be what next episode will be about. Anyway, I'm just rambling at this point. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you watched this to the end, thank you so much. You're incredible. Man, you should leave a comment too if you want. But anyway, it's up to you, man, I will see y'all on the next episode. Have an amazing day.